It was entirely possible that one song could destroy your life. Yes, musical doom could fall on a lone human form and crush it like a bug. The song, that song, was sent from somewhere else to find you, to pick the scab of your whole existence. The song was your personal, shitty fate, manifest as a throb of pop floating out of radios everywhere. At the very least, the song was the soundtrack to your destruction. Your days reduced to a montage cut to its cowbell beat, inexorable doubled bass line, and raunch vocal, a sort of chanted sneer surrounded by groans of pleasure. Rhythm guitar and trumpet pitched to mockery. The singer might as well have held a gun to your head. How could it have been allowed to happen? How could it have been allowed on the radio? That song ought to be illegal. It wasn't racist. You'll never sort that one out. Don't even start. So much as anti-you. Yes, they were dancing and singing and moving to the grooving, and just when it hit me, somebody turned around and shouted. Every time your sneakers met the street, the end of that summer, somebody was hurling it at your head. That song. Forget what happens when you start haunting the green tile walls of Intermediate School 293. September 4th, 1976, the week Dylan Ebdis began 7th grade in the main building on Court Street in Butler. Wild Cherry's Play That Funky Music was the top song on the rhythm and blues charts. 14 days later, it topped Billboard's pop charts. Your Misery's Anthem, #1 song in the nation. Sing it through gritted teeth. White boy, lay down the boogie and play that funky music till you die. When Dylan Ebdis first spotted Arthur Long, the other boy was feigning pain in the far corner of the schoolyard. At some distance, Dylan heard the cries and turned from the entrance of the school to look. Catching sight of Arthur Long was like noticing the flight and fall of a bird across a distance of leaf-blurred sky. That flicker at the corner of vision, the abrupt plummeting. It occurred at that moment of slippage, after the bell had rung and the gym teachers who patrolled the yard had returned inside, ahead of the flood of students. So the yard became a lawless zone, that terrible sudden reframing of space, which could happen anywhere, even inside the corridors of the school. Nevertheless, it was a clumsy mistake for the boy, now cringing on the ground, to be caught on the far side of the yard, so distant from the entrance. A mistake Dylan felt he couldn't forgive. He wouldn't have forgiven it in himself. Arthur Long fell to his knees and clutched his chest and keened. His words were briefly audible across the depopulating yard. "I can't breathe." Then again, each syllable riding a sharp insuck of air. "I can't breathe." Arthur Long was pretending asthma or some other weakness. It was an identifiable method, preemptive suffering. Nobody could do much with a kid who was already crying. He'd become useless, untillable soil. He had no spirit to crush, and it was faintly disgusting, in poor taste. Anyway, this weirdly gasping kid might not know the rules and talk, tattle to some distant figure of authority what he imagined had been done to him. He might even be truly sick, in pain, fucked up. Who knew? Your only option was to say, "Dang, white boy, what's your problem? I didn't even touch you," and move on. Dylan admired the strategy, feeling at once a cool quiver of recognition and a hot bolt of shame. He felt that he was seeing his double, his stand-in. It was at least true that any punishment Arthur Long endured was likely otherwise Dylan's. Or anyway, that a gang of black kids couldn't knock Dylan to the pavement or put him in a yoke at the exact moment they were busy doing it to Arthur Long. From that point on, Arthur Long's reddish hair and hunched shoulders were easy to spot, though he and Dylan had different homerooms and schedules which kept them from overlapping anywhere except the schoolyard at lunch hour. Arthur Long dressed in conspicuous striped polo shirts, and wore soft brown shoes. His pants were often high waters. Dylan once heard a couple of black girls serenading Arthur Long with a couplet he hadn't elicited himself since 4th grade, snapping their fingers and harmonizing high and low like a doo-wop group. The flood is over, the land is dry, so why do you wear your pants so high? Arthur Long carried an enormous and bright blue knapsack, an additional blight. All his school books must be inside, or maybe a couple of stone tablets. The bag itself would have tugged Arthur Long to the ground if he'd stood up straight. As it was, the bag glowed as a target, begged to be jerked downward, to crumple Arthur Long to the corridor floor, there to enact his shortness of breath routine. Dylan had seen it done 5 times already before he and Arthur Long ever spoke. Dylan had even heard kids chanting that song at Arthur Long as they slapped at his reddened neck or the top of his head when they squirmed on the floor. It was the library where they finally spoke. Dylan and Arthur Long's 2 homerooms had been deposited there together for a period. The school librarian covering some unexplained absence of teachers for an afternoon. A blip in the routine nobody cared about anyway. Most kids sent to the library who never arrived there ended outside the building instead, taking the word as euphemism for class dismissed. So the IS-293 library was drab but peaceful, an eddy of calm. Dylan placed himself against a wall and flipped open issue number 2 of the Marvel Comics adaptation of Logan's Run. As the period ticked away glacially, Arthur Long buzzed him twice, squinting to see the title of the comic, then pursing his lips in false concentration as he mimed browsing the half-empty shelves nearby, before stepping close enough for Dylan to hear him speak. That guy George Perez can't draw Farrah Fawcett to save his life. This was a startling allusion to several bodies of knowledge simultaneously. Dylan could only glare. His curiosity mingled with the certainty that he and Arthur Long were more objectionable, more unpardonable together than apart. Up close, Arthur Long had a blinking, agitated quality which made Dylan himself want to knock him down. His face seemed to reach for something, his features like a grasping hand.